Naturally, you would think someone at 2 or 3 in the morning in a club telling you with an accent, I'm going to put a group together, it's going to be a cop, an Indian, or this or that. It's like, I looked at him like, yeah, sure.
Inside the club, Morali watched as men dressed as Indians and cowboys saddled up to the bar.
For the outsider, completely smitten by the romance of America, this was just like such a great image, and at that point the ideas of the village people began to fit together, and it just seemed the perfect sort of like theatrical vehicle for Jacques Morali to launch his big idea.
Morali's big idea was a disco group made up of cartoon-type characters who could represent action heroes or gay stereotypes found in the village. Randy Jones became the cowboy.
I think it was a time when the gay subculture was taking its cues and throwing off the shackles of being the Stonewall kind of attitude and taking more of a positive, taking possession of their masculinities.
But before Jacques Morali launched his new venture, he decided to test the waters first. In the spring of 1977, Morali went into a recording studio armed with 4 songs and a group of studio singers. 26-year-old Victor Willis was the lead vocalist.
And he said, I can't pay you but like $1,000 to do these like 3 or 4 songs. He says, but if it is successful, I'll come back and I'll make you a star.
Morali and his partner, Henri Belolo, financed the album Village People, which included songs about popular gay meeting places, Fire Island, San Francisco, and Greenwich Village. The 2 men were convinced their album was perfect for Neil Bogart, then head of Casablanca Records, disco's hottest label. Bogart was eager to promote and distribute Morali's album. In the summer of 1977, the Village People album was released. The reaction was phenomenal. Overnight, fans were grooving to a hot new sound. DJ Manny Slally was part of the scene.
I don't think Casablanca Records or their producers really knew what a big album in the gay clubs that was going to be.
The album was bigger than big. Record executives uncovered a gold mine, and Bogart scrambled to reap the rewards.
Neil came back to them and said, we would like to do another record because we've sold 100,000 copies, but you got to have somebody to sell this music. You got to have real people.
Coming up, macho men needed, mustache required.
He says, oh, you have a mustache. Do you sing? Can you dance? I said, yeah.
And later, disco explodes. By the summer of 1977, the album Village People was making a big noise in America's gay communities. Record producer Jacques Morali had a smash hit on his hands. But since the LP was recorded with studio singers, he had no group. What Morali needed was a few good men.
He had a concept. He had an idea. We were the flesh and blood.
Jacques Morali's dream of an all-male disco group was a fantasy about to come true. Friend and famed stylist, José Ibert.
Jacques was extremely ambitious. I mean, he wanted to be successful more than anything else, and part of it is not just that what comes with success is due to his, I mean, I believe, a lot of insecurities.
Morali's need to prove himself started when he was an unhappy child growing up in Morocco. The youngest of 2 sons, Morali was a disappointment to his mother, journalist Y.M.C.A.
She wanted him to be a girl. He used to say that she dressed him up in a communion dress, and he thought this completely disfigured him psychologically for the rest of his life.
Jacques' family moved to France in the 1960s, but the boy's life didn't get any easier. As a teen, Morali learned to mask his loneliness and lifestyle.
He was gay, he wanted the love of men, and he found that incredibly hard to find. And like his whole life is like this search to find this kind of happiness.
It was a search that culminated in Morali's crowning achievement, the Village People. By the fall of 1977, 30-year-old Morali had the sound. What he needed was a group. Morali began casting for an all-male disco act. a collection of costumed characters who were stereotypes of American masculinity. First up were three singers from the Village People album. 20-year-old Felipe Rose, Morali's barroom discovery, was an obvious choice to play the Indian. 25-year-old Alex Briley, a classically trained musician and singer from New York, was cast as the soldier. For the lead vocalist, Morali brought back 27-year-old Victor Willis to fill the shoes of the cop. Willis was fresh off a stint in the Broadway musical, The Wiz. Morali found his cowboy in an unlikely place. 24-year-old Randy Jones, a professional dancer, was performing in a disco show with the outrageous singer Grace Jones.
Met Jacques there, and he says, "Oh, you have a mustache. Do you sing? Can you dance?" I said, "Yeah."
Randy was in. 4 down, 2 to go. Jacques Morali then placed an ad in a New York newspaper. Macho men wanted, mustache required. Several hundred men auditioned, and Morali didn't mess around. He quickly cast 26-year-old David Hodo, an out-of-work actor and singer, in the role of the construction worker. The last member of the group to be selected was Glenn Hughes, a native New Yorker who worked as a toll collector at the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. 26-year-old Hughes was cast in the role of the biker. By late fall 1977, the Village People were official. They agreed to a fixed weekly salary and reported to work.
The Monday after Thanksgiving, we signed contracts, and the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, we were in the studio recording Macho Man with Victor Willis's lyrics that were handwritten in the morning that had egg stains on it and coffee rings from where he had, I mean, everything was that quickly.
Helping Morali write the group's songs was a tough assignment for lead vocalist Victor Willis.
I would try to put the words of what he was talking about into my lyrics and make them fit the melody line.
But some members of the group believed Macho Man was a major bust.
David Hodo can remember going into the studio, listening to the words for Macho Man and just thinking, this is the most embarrassing, macho man.
Despite the grumblings about the song, the Village People quickly bonded.
It was almost a brotherhood because we went through 2.5 to 3 months of pretty tough rehearsals for not much money to begin with, and we didn't know if it was going to work.
But the hard work did pay off. The Village People album was a hit on the club circuit. The group's upbeat music was quickly making its way from small gay clubs to a mainstream audience. On February 28, 1978, the group played their first big show at Brooklyn's 2001 Odyssey, the same club where John Travolta danced his way to stardom in the 1977 box office hit, Saturday Night Fever. The moment was magic, according to David Hodo.
I had never seen that crowd. They all looked like Farrah Fawcett and John Travolta. It just must be such a moment in the cosmos when the lights went up and they saw us for the first time and we saw them for the first time. And we never had anything less than an enthusiastic reaction.
The enthusiasm continued to build when the Village People hit the road.
We went around to every discotheque venue in the country. We built a basis for Macho Man and for Village People.
Village People mania reached a fever pitch soon after Macho Man was released in February 1978. By that summer, the record reached the top 40, and the group was a bona fide hit. But for Jacques Morali, a top single wasn't enough. The record producer was a control freak who demanded perfection. Morali's close friend, Wesley Johansson.
He expected other people to be as meticulous and as perfect as he was, and not everybody could live up to that measure.
He was very intimidating, and he would have fits, but not about anything, about just, the costume or the dance routine or the voice or the pitch or whatever it was.
I think in perfect world, in Jacques' world, he would have been a musical superstar. He, in his way, tried to live out that through us. And so he was not only protective of us, but he was also tried to be manipulative of us.
Coming up, the boys of disco spell success.
Now they're doing them with bar mitzvahs. Everybody's going Y.M.C.A.
The 1978 smash single Macho Man had fans of the Village People pumped up and screaming for more. So was the man behind the scenes, record producer Jacques Morali. More rehearsals, more travel, and more sacrifices. The result was a bitter tug-of-war over who flexed the real muscle.
We worked non-stop. We were pushed to the limit.
As soon as the album Macho Man was released, the Village People were in a disco whirl. Life became all work and no play.
A lot of the nightlife that people think we were so totally immersed in, we never even got a taste of, except when we were escorted there maybe in a limousine to jump out at 4 o'clock in the morning and spend 15 minutes in the club in front of people and then be whisked out the back door and onto another one.
The gigs never stopped, and neither did the rehearsals.
The only thing we had was lines of music and words to sing. We worked with choreographers, but we totally fleshed out these characters.
The long hours paid off handsomely for Morali, their leader. Man Parrish worked as the group's road manager.
They were singing in a studio, and Jacques Morali once walked in with a fur coat and said, "Darlings, you like my fur coat?" And they were like, "Wow." He said, "Keep singing, you buy me another one."
The Village People were willing to pay the price for Morali's success and their own.
They were like kids with stars in their eyes that kind of got into this whirlwind, and hey, look, I'm on TV, and I'm famous.
The press enjoyed photographing Victor Willis and his fiancée, singer Felicia Allen, who later starred as Claire Huxtable on the television series The Cosby Show. The couple were married in 1978. Meanwhile, that summer Jacques Morali was eager to generate another hit record. And he once again found inspiration on the streets of New York, this time in front of a building on 23rd Street, home to the Young Men's Christian Association. Journalist W.M.C.A.
He said, what's this? And what is this Y.M.C.A? What is it? It was obviously explained to him that there's this sort of gay scene there as well in the gyms in the Y.M.C.A. sometimes.
Morali immediately began to hum a catchy tune and brought the song to the attention of his musical arranger, Horace Ott.
He wanted to tell me about this new song that he had. And it's just called Y.M.C.A. And I'm saying, wow, yeah, okay.
In the fall of 1978, Casablanca Records released the Village People's second big single, Y.M.C.A. The song rocketed to #2 on the pop charts, and the group's album Cruisin' went double platinum. Later that year, the Village People appeared on Dick Clark's TV show, American Bandstand, and Y.M.C.A. became a national dance craze.
So that really was an organic thing that came from the audience. And it's something that, to this day, people, every weekend at weddings, they do Y.M.C.A.
The world danced to Y.M.C.A., while the Village People completed the crossover from a mainly gay audience to mainstream America. Morali friend and disco player Nikki Haskell.
Anyone that turned on the radio, or anybody that ever listened to music during that period of time and wanted to go dancing, wanted to dance to the Village People.
As Y.M.C.A. became more popular with mainstream audiences, the song was scrutinized for innuendos about the gay lifestyle and promiscuity. Journalist Vince Aletti believes the controversy was much ado about nothing.
I think most people who heard Y.M.C.A. didn't really get the subtext. And the people who did were delighted and amused. And as long as all that got across, that was, I think, all that mattered.
The song's co-lyricist, Victor Willis.
Nothing I wrote was written for gays or straights or whatever. I wrote for music and for people.
To this day, I can hear people will quote lyrics, you know, from a song, and I'm thinking, no, there's nowhere in Y.M.C.A. do we talk about hanging out in the showers and dropping the soap.
Whatever the meaning of the song's lyrics, nothing could stop the Village People's success. In 1979, Rolling Stone magazine heralded the group as the face of disco. That year, the Village People made personal appearances, posed for Playgirl magazine, and released their fourth album, Go West. And in the spring of 1979, they did. The group traveled to San Diego to shoot a promotional film for their next single, In the Navy. The film was shot on board the USS Reasoner. The Village People performed an unforgettable routine of bumps and grinds with 260 sailors.
We actually had the crew from the ship in the video, and their captain told them, you know, you can snap your fingers or you can tap your feet, but if I see you dancing in any way, shape, or form, you're out.
Following the lively performance, Navy brass reportedly considered using "In the Navy" as a recruiting tool. The idea was torpedoed when rumors surfaced about a possible gay subtext in the lyrics. The media questioned more than the song's words. Were the members of the group gay, or was the image simply part of a colorful act?
We had them guessing. We did not want to alienate any portion of the audience, and we attempted to keep our personal lives personal.
Jacques Morali insisted group members' personal lives remain personal.
He wanted nothing ever again to be expressed about sexual preference.
For the record producer, the controversy began and ended with the bottom line.
It's about money. As long as the money is being made, they're fine.
Coming up, a revolt among the villagers. And later, a disco tragedy.
He just kept on walking and got to the end of the corridor and jumped out of a window.
By late spring 1979, the singles Macho Man, Y.M.C.A., and In the Navy each went gold and firmly established the Village People as disco's #1 act. But hard-charging record producer Jacques Morali wanted to turn his village into an empire by conquering a new realm, Hollywood.
If you talk to anybody about the idea, they thought this is like a slam dunk.
As the 70s came to an end, the Village People continued to ride the disco merry-go-round of worldwide tours, personal appearances, and media scrutiny. The more outrageous, the better. The group was exhausted, but Jacques Morali continued to pull the strings, with plenty of help from his business partner, Henri Belolo.
This guy, Henri Belolo, who was orchestrating all of this, he knew that he had to strike while the iron was hot, get as much out of his artists as he could.
And he did. Belolo and Morali believed the Village People were a perfect fit for Hollywood, and so did late producer Alan Carr. Carr was a big little man with a reputation for throwing lavish parties and hanging out at New York City's Studio 54 nightclub.
I love to dance, and my pink champagne, and in my booth, and I was, you know, King Tut.
Alan Carr made millions on the 1978 film Grease. He was on the hunt for his next big project. Producer Neil Macklis worked with Carr.
He figured that to put a movie out with this group at this time, it was just, the timing couldn't have been better.
Alan Carr and Jacques Morali developed an outrageous musical extravaganza called Discoland, where the music never ends. A romanticized tale about the creation of the Village People. But Carr co-wrote a script that made no sense. Choreographer Arlene Phillips.
I mean, it was so airy-fairy. Was it supposed to be a comedy? Was it supposed to be a musical? What was it supposed to be?
No one seemed to have the answer. Director of photography, Bill Butler.
I think that Alan Carr, having experienced the success of Grease, felt that all he really had to do was to provide great sets, great entertainment, great music, and everybody would love it.
Convinced he had a sure thing, Carr hired a first-time director, his friend, actress Nancy Walker. Walker was best known for her TV role as Ida Morgenstern on The Mary Tyler Moore Show. A lousy script and an inexperienced director weren't the only problems. Lead singer and co-lyricist Victor Willis became too big for his badge.
He sort of felt that he maybe was somehow elevated a notch or two above us.
I had my own separate dressing room. I had my own separate valet. I didn't have to go to the sound checks. The only time they saw me was when they saw my back when I hit the stage to open the show.
Victor Willis's ego wasn't his only problem. While the Village People prepared for the film, the group continued a limited concert schedule. In June of 1979, Willis showed up late for a performance in Hollywood.
I had only learned after the show that Victor was freebasing, doing a big hit of freebase in the dressing room prior to his performance.
A cop on the wrong side of the law was bad for business.
We had a meeting with Jacques and Henri, and we said, this is not right. I mean, he's alienating not only himself, but he's giving the impression that we are of the same way.
Willis denies that drugs ever affected his performance with the group.
It was a money situation. I was making too much money.
Willis was out. Even so, the record producers offered him a chance at a solo career. Willis later cut an album that was never released. Meanwhile, the Village People searched for a replacement.
We knew someone who would probably fill his shoes well and had a great voice, and that was Raymond Simpson.
Ray Simpson jumped at the opportunity. With a new cop on board, filming for the movie Discoland started in July of 1979. The cast included Steve Guttenberg, Valerie Perrine, and former Olympian Bruce Jenner.
I was looking for a project for me to do and said, oh, this is just too wild a combination, you know, Bruce Jenner, the Village People. This has got to work.
Producer Alan Carr was firmly in control, and no expense was spared. Stephen Applegate was Carr's personal assistant.
It was so extravagant. It was almost like a Busby Berkeley movie. It was just unbelievable. I mean, the glitz was beyond control.
And so was Carr, who turned the set into his own personal playground.
They had all these guys in the shower. I wasn't there for that shot, but that was kind of bizarre. You know, good old Alan and all the boys are out there, and it was fun. You know, it was a piece of work.
Alan Carr had a good time, but the dailies from the film were as disjointed as the script. Director Nancy Walker had a bad feeling about the project.
And she'd say, honey, you gotta remember, movies are nothing but little pieces snipped together.
Despite the film's obvious drawbacks, the fun continued. The movie's finale, which captured the Village People in concert, was anything but subtle. It was a party to blow out the decade. But every party has to end. Coming up, a cowboy heads for the last roundup.
I said I wouldn't do it, and I ended my contract at the end of that year.
With sold-out concerts, hit records, and a motion picture, the Village People were on a roll. The group banked on a big Hollywood musical to catapult their careers into the decade of the 80s.
As they say, timing makes champions, and it didn't happen.
In the summer of 1979, the Village People were in the midst of filming Discoland, where the music never ends. But that's exactly what was happening to the country's love affair with disco. The message came across loud and clear on July 13, 1979. As part of a promotional stunt following a baseball game at Chicago's Comiskey Park, hundreds of disco records were exploded, and fans rioted. Producers of the Village People film were nervous. Alan Carr rushed to salvage his investment by changing the title from Discoland, Where the Music Never Ends, to Can't Stop the Music. The big-budget extravaganza released in the summer of 1980 bombed.
Here were these fabulous boys, you know, that were going to be in a movie and they were going to have this great career and everything, and then it was over.
And the 80s began. Disco was done. The Village People were not. Although the movie was a bust, Jacques Morali wasn't giving up on his dream or his group.
They were so terrified, I guess, or disappointed by the lack of success of that film, that they thought that they needed to do something so drastically and new.
Morali took extreme measures. He tossed out the costumed characters that made him millions to ride pop music's latest wave.
They had the new romantic look come in from England, and they were like, yeah, we could do that. I'm sure my face is saying everything right now. It was pretty bad, but at the time I'm sure it was a great idea.
I knew what was in Jacques' head. He was saying, I'll take these boys, I'll take their images away, and I'll put paint and makeup on them so they can't be so easily distinguished. And if one more of them gives me a problem or complains, I'll can his ass. I'll fire him.
Jacques Morali had a new vision, but 27-year-old Randy Jones refused to play along.
I didn't want to do it, and I said I wouldn't do it, and I ended my contract at the end of that year.
Jones rode off into the sunset to try his hand at producing records. He was replaced by model Jeff Olson. The other members of the Village People stayed on, painted their faces, and hoped for the best. But the group's 1981 album, Renaissance, didn't score with fans.
The album went right into the trash bin. It did not work. It did not sell. And it was really, the group maybe went on another year or two after that.
Eventually, construction worker David Hodo called it quits and started his own rockabilly band.
People didn't want the Village People at the time, but they certainly didn't want the Village People pretending to be someone else. So it completely died.
But the end was slow in coming. 2 more unsuccessful albums followed in the mid-'80s. In 1985, the curtain came down on the Village People. Group members decided to take a much-needed break. For the creator of the group, 39-year-old Jacques Morali, his American dream was coming to an end. Despite all his accomplishments, the writer and producer was still the loneliest man at his own party.
There had to be an element of frustration. Here you are, a gay man who has lots of money, surrounded by attractive men, and yet you were not one of them. I think that could be frustrating for some people who really maybe deep in his heart, like I said, he wanted to be what we were.
Even sadder was Morali's fall from the heights of the music world. In 1985, he returned to Paris, disillusioned and confused.
He went from being able to, write 1 million songs and getting 1 million different companies to release his songs, not getting anyone that could release his songs.
Cranking out hit records became irrelevant in the face of a death sentence. In 1985, Morali was diagnosed with the AIDS virus. Even music couldn't heal the pain. Coming up, the King's final days.
In the end, he wanted the truth. He had nothing to hide anymore.
By 1985, disco was dead, the king of the Village People was dying, and the group disbanded. But just when it seemed life could not get any darker, it did.
It was really a tragedy, a disco tragedy.
In the spring of 1987, the Village People's original cowboy, Randy Jones, decided the boys of disco were primed for a comeback.
Number one, I wanted to get everybody in one place to see if we could be in the same room, and I wanted to see how everybody looked. And everybody looked great.
The boys decided to reunite.
How many macho men do we have here? Macho men say here!
But this time, the group wanted to control their own fate and formed a management company called 6 of Us. But the creation still belonged to 50-year-old Henri Belolo and 40-year-old Jacques Morali. The 2 men owned the name Village People and all the songs. Group members agreed to pay Morali and Belolo a licensing fee to sing under the name Village People. But this time, there were no hit records, just a steady stream of one-night stands.
I think they were very frustrated, playing, small little clubs for, very little money.
The schedule was grueling, and after 4 years, Randy Jones quit in 1991. Jones was replaced once again by cowboy number 2, Jeff Olson. While the Village People struggled with their comeback attempt, Victor Willis, who played the original cop and co-wrote many of the group's hits, battled simply to survive. After leaving the Village People 12 years earlier, Willis drifted aimlessly. A solo singing career went nowhere. His marriage to actress Felicia Allen ended, and his drug use escalated.
Man, I ain't had no battles. I don't battle with drugs. I use them. I don't battle them. What are you talking about battle?
In 1990, 39-year-old Willis was convicted for possession of cocaine. Meanwhile, the incredible fairy tale of the Village People was about to close a sad chapter. At his home in Paris, 44-year-old Jacques Morali entered the final, agonizing stages of his ordeal with AIDS. The only bright spot was his lover of 9 years, 41-year-old Harold Striegel.
Harold, a wonderful person that he met in Los Angeles. He was more like a companion at the beginning. Had a lot of respect for Jacques and was different than all the other people he had seen before. And some very close relationship built out of that.
Harold was also diagnosed HIV positive. Together, the couple struggled with a disease they couldn't control. By the winter of 1991, Morali's illness took a turn for the worse. He became depressed and lashed out at family members, believing they were planning to take his fortune and leave his lover Harold with nothing. Morali came up with a radical plan. Friend Wesley Johansen.
He married Harold's mother. That was the only way within the structure of the French inheritance laws that he could protect Harold from what he knew were going to be two vicious opponents, his mother and his brother.
By the summer of 1991, Morali's battles with his family over money finally took its toll on his lover Harold.
I think he suddenly came to terms with where he was going in his mind. He ended up going to the hospital where he was treated. He walked up to the 5th floor and he just kept on walking and he kept on walking and kept on walking and got to the end of the corridor and jumped out of a window.
Harold was 41 years old. The news of his death hit Morali hard.
It was just devastating, and it was the end of the end, obviously.
And the end of Morali's reign over the village people. Wesley Johansen became Jacques' caretaker.
The only person who stayed in touch with him was David Hodo. David was very caring and used to put in calls and ask about Jacques' well-being.
During his final days, Morali continued treatment while listening to the songs that made him wealthy. But all the money in the world couldn't ease his pain or erase the dark secret he harbored for years. Morali confided in Johansen that as a young boy, he was forced to work as a prostitute.
He had said to me, I wish that I could have been a normal person, that I could have had a wife and children, but I was never allowed to have that vision of life. I had to get to the top in order to forget the bottom.
On November 15, 1991, Jacques Morali died. He was 44 years old. But even in death, the consummate perfectionist would not let go. Every detail of his funeral was choreographed according to Morali's directive, including the playing of Y.M.C.A. The irony wasn't lost on Jacques' friends. A song about optimism and acceptance, written by a man who had little of either in his life. Coming up, the village people crown a new king, and the saga continues.
Henri Belolo is village people. He owns the two words. He owns all the rights.
A Village People reunion in the late 80s put the boys of disco back on the concert circuit. But in 1991, the group's revival was tinged with sadness. Jacques Morali, the man who reigned over the Village People empire for 14 years, succumbed to AIDS at the age of 44. The deadly disease robbed Morali of his life, but not his legacy.
He used to say to me, darling, Beethoven will live on forever, and so will I.
In many ways, Jacques Morali's prediction of music immortality was right. Morali's uplifting melodies live on, earning him a coveted place in the history of pop music.
He may live forever, but he's going to have 2 words and 6 people attached to him, as well as Henri.
The 2 words are, of course, village people. And Henri is 60-year-old Henri Belolo, the man who financed Jacques Morali's genius and helped make his dream a reality.
Henri Belolo is village people. He owns the 2 words. He owns all the rights.
the Village People continue to tour the world, delighting fans old and new. The group includes original members Alex Briley, the soldier, Felipe Rose, the Indian, and David Hodo, the construction worker. Ray Simpson, the cop, Jeff Olson, Cowboy 2, and a new biker, Eric Anzalone, round out the cast of colorful characters. Glenn Hughes, the original biker, remains active as a member of the Village People's management team, 6 of us. Victor Willis, the original cop, has unsuccessfully tried to rekindle his singing career. And Cowboy Randy Jones no longer has any role with the group, but he'll never forget his incredible ride.
I was blessed because the financial benefits from Village People to this day are, you know, nice and allow me to be 47 years old and, you know, not have to work for a living.
The Village People are a unique breed. 6 macho men who boogied their way to disco fame and set an entire generation in motion. Few musical groups hit so hard and so fast. And more than 20 years later, the Village People are still on stage bumping and grinding. And there is nowhere they'd rather be.
When someone hears Y.M.C.A. or Macho Man or In the Navy, they don't feel sad. Immediately, when you hear Village People or you hear one of those songs, people smile.
I'm Felipe, Latin Native American.
I'm Alexander Briley, the soldier.
And I'm Ray Simpson, the policeman.
I'm Eric Anzalone, the Leatherman.
David Hodo, hard hat.
And I'm Jeff Olson, the cowboy.
See, he took the job for the cop for the outfit. He really loves that outfit.
So the most